Thank you, Nadia, for the introduction, and thank you for inviting me to this wonderful kind of event. Having, mashallah, I see the numbers just rising for the attendees. Sounds like a very hot subject for everybody. Um, I'll do a little presentation, but first I need to get to know about your financial literacy levels. So let me just start by sharing my screen. And of course, as we go, you can post your questions. I'm sure there's that questions panel, and we'll get to those questions. So let me start by sharing my screen, which I'm sure is visible right now. Um, since I'm sure a lot of people do gaming, we called it mastering the money game. As you master any other game, the money is just one more that you can master, I'm sure. Just a little bit about myself. As Nadia mentioned, I've been in the field of e-commerce, of payments. I've always been a banker. I've worked between Kuwait and the United States, and I'm working now with a credit bureau. And I'll explain what this credit bureau do and how does that affect your financial literacy. But since Nadia introduced me, I introduced myself, I want to get to know the audience. So please either scan this code or go to Kahoot, put in this game pin. So we can play a little game on Kahoot just to get to know you about who you are, what's your financial literacy. And the link has been, if you're on your PC, you can just look at the chat and post the link for the Kahoot is there. And I'll switch my screen right now to the Kahoot. So we see the people joining. Okay, I see already people have joined. And is my Kahoot screen visible?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, perfect. Wow, a lot of names. Okay, I guess I'll give a minute since I see a lot of people still joining before we start the game. Okay, أهلا ياسمين أحمد شاهين ما شاء الله دينا آلاء. And there are some just survey questions, so I know the audience, and there are some questions which I want to see, like how do people do their day-to-day financial transactions or spending behaviors, as that will help me as we go through this session. Okay, I see a lot of people still joining, slowing down. Let's go ahead and start the Kahoot. 2 minutes, 1 minute, mashallah. Okay, I see almost 250 people on the Kahoot. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. It's just like I said, the few survey questions first. I just want to know, where are you right now? Just drop your pin, drop the pin on the map to see where are we located. And you've got 30 seconds. I know INJAZ works everywhere, but the reason I'm asking here is I was looking at the map and financial literacy rate at different countries in the Arab world. And I just want to make sure that, we put that map and compare it to the other map when I finish my presentation and give you the map of the financial literacy rate and help see. Okay, mashallah. So it looks like we have everywhere, and we have somebody like right in the middle of the ocean there, but good, I guess, where a lot of people in the Gulf and so on. So let's do a little poll of how often do you order food online? I'm sure everybody knows Talabat, Deliveroo, Carry, what is it called? There's tons of these apps. And this is part of your spending habits, to just give it a thought of how many times do I spend on food that I may save at home. Once a week, okay. And if it's every day, I mean, it's regardless of spending, you should be worried about your health if you order food online every day. So did you buy anything on installments? أقساط, يعني laptop devices, all of that stuff that sometimes you buy the phone and you take it on installments. And usually you could be still paying it off. You probably did it and you closed it. You never bought anything, or maybe save the money and rather buy it cash. Okay, so I see not a lot of people do installments. Some people are paying it off, some people are this, but also the people who save up and do cash, that's also a good behavior, good stuff, and we'll get to that later. So budgeting is only for the wealthy. And when I say budgeting, meaning if you receive an allowance or some form of salary or something, that before you spend it, you actually think where you're gonna, how much you're gonna spend and how much you're gonna save and so on. Boss, great job. Yes, no matter how much you make, you need to budget it. And we'll talk about the budgeting rule. Oh, oh, now we're so now that we're asking yes or no question, there are going to be scores. And the faster you answer with Kahoot, I'm sure you know that the higher your score is. So what is a common budgeting method? This is how do you actually do your budgeting? And if you're asking me, Mom, I'm hoping she's like a financial analyst or something, if that's your answer. Yes, exactly. There is a 50, 30, 20 rule, which we'll cover today, and I'm glad some people are familiar with it. And we can cover it in details too. Okay. Kebab, you're not in the lead. Aisha is in the lead. So what is a credit score? And a credit score is usually issued by a credit bureau. Like where I work right now, we issue credit scores for the people. And it's majorly affected by your behavior. And not any behavior, your behavior of when you do loans and credit card. Exactly. It is a measure of credit worthiness. It's not an account, it's not a measure of your wealth or your loan. It affects your approval rate. So your credit score can affect how much you're approved in terms of loans, but it's a measure of how credit worthy you are. Oh, Aisha is down now. Arwa is in the lead. Great. Good job, Arwa. So saving money is only for emergencies. You should always maintain a savings account. It doesn't matter how much you have in your saving. Um, but the purpose of savings here. When I say, mashallah, 270 وصلنا. Yes, exactly. It's not only for emergencies. You can save up for a car. You can save up for a goal. You can save up for anything. Arwa Aisha standing strong. mashallah. Sarah. Okay. Financial planning is unnecessary for young people since you don't make a lot of money. Um, I'm not sure if you think financial planning is good for you or not good. Um, again, we just want to think out loud together. Exactly. It is very much necessary for everybody. أروى شو تسوين أروى ما شاء الله. So financial literacy is a lifelong skill. And when I say lifelong, that, when do you start your financial literacy? Um, like, do you learn it early in school? When you get a job, when you start making a lot of money, you start building financial literacy? Because financial literacy can cover a lot of things. It's not just savings. Um, it's not just budgeting. There's much more. Exactly. It is a lifelong skill, and we tend to learn it. Now, write me one word that describes your spending habits. How do you spend? And it could be how much do you spend, how often do you spend, how crazy do you spend? Because spending is a habit, and sometimes it takes a lot of effort and a lot of thought to build a new habit or to make new habits, especially when it comes to finances. Spending is always the hardest part of keeping your finances. Well, there's one big word. Not too much. Unleashed, decent, smart, balanced. Okay, mashallah. A lot of people wrote balanced, which is good. Bad is there. Organized wisely, responsibly, more than I should. That's a good one. Mashallah, good stuff. Good stuff. I guess we'll see the winners for the final question. So Sarah at number 3. So these are the questions before the poll. Hello, Jane. Nice. And the winner is Arwa. MashaAllah, you stood strong. Good job, Arwa. Good job, Sarah and Lujane. So that gave me just a hint of where you are, how you're doing. And I'm going to go ahead and move into the presentation. Thank you, everyone. So I've done a little research. So Nadia told me that most of you are in college. So we've done a little research for everybody, kind of some student survey from Kuwait University. So we asked them, where do you spend your money? And how, what's the breakup of spending money? And usually there is 200 dinars, and call it whatever currency that you have. So if you have 200 dinars a month, that's your allowance, how do you spend it? A lot of them, they said like 25% of that goes on their daily Starbucks and coffee bean and all of that good stuff. Takeout was another good 30%. They are subscribed to Netflix. And of course, here is the basic. When I look at the others here, the food and the gas, these are your basics. These are your needs. And, these are the other expenses. But the majority of these expenses, if you see, are what we say wants. So we have to distinguish between the wants and needs when we talk about that. But this was them, how they answered, how they spend their monthly allowance. Now, think when you get a job and that 200 becomes 1,000. What happens is, if you have the same habits, you're going to spend it on the same things. You're not going to just spend the 200 and keep the 800. No. Coffee will still take more, but the thing is, since you have more money, you might invite people for coffee. You might buy everyone in the office coffee. Instead of ordering from Talabat and Deliveroo, your budget will stretch. You will add more Shein, Timo, all of that good stuff. Instead of having one subscription, now that you have more money, you'll probably be tempted to spend more money on subscriptions. So instead of 10 KD, you'll go 70 because you're going to add more channels. And the needs will still be the same. The car will still have the same gas. You won't eat more food, but you'll have extra money here. So you'll end up buying gifts, buying brands, buying more and more stuff because you have that. So the idea here, whether you're here before or you're, before or after, when the numbers change in terms of how much money you make, you won't change your habits, but you will just, your budget will just stretch and you will spend more. So it's important for us to build good habits now. So when we use it later, when we make more money as we get jobs, inshallah, and you're all graduating and you get great jobs, you won't be doing the bad habits and you won't be spending your money because you just have money and you just want to spend it. You won't be doing that 30% on online orders. And if we just define financial literacy overall, is that you have to understand and effectively use your skills. That includes personal finance management. PFM is very important, personal finance management, budgeting, and even investing is also to give you a little bit of stability, to give you flexibility, to be able to spend money when you want to spend money. So you just have to build those skills early on before you get get jobs and start investing or start getting a loan or borrowing and all of that. And there are 3 basics for the financial literacy. First is budgeting. Before you receive your money, before you get your paycheck, before you get your allowance, whatever it is, you have to plan ahead. What is my spending? What is my saving? What am I going to be doing for emergencies? How much am I keeping aside for certain goals? So this is the budgeting, which comes part of it is saving. So you need to keep an eye on your savings and you need to spend your savings wisely. You don't get savings so you could spend it for fun or for buying more stuff. So savings are for a certain goal. And then debt. Now previously you could only do credit cards or loans when you actually have a job. But right now there is the buy now, pay later. When you talk about Tabby and Tamara and all of those stuff, they actually some form of debt because you borrow money and you pay it on installments. So this is also, we need to make sure that when we're paying back, we pay back on time. So we have a good history, we call them a credit history, to manage our debts and so on. So when we go to number one, which is budgeting, usually we have the 50%, 30%, and 20% rule, which is most of you, or maybe 50% of you answered right when I had that in the Kahoot. So 50% you spend it on needs. This is your basic needs. And if some of you, most of the people in the Arab world, they live with their parents. So a lot of the needs are covered by your parents. So you might have extra money there that you could push to spending or saving, sorry. And then the needs here is everything that you have to do, your car, gas, your maybe, car maintenance. This is things that you need for college, food, day to day, all of that stuff. There's 30% for the wants. This is the shopping. This is the things that you don't really need, but you really want to have them. So there's 30% of those spending. And then make sure that 20% always goes to savings. And like I said, savings has to have a goal, saving for a bad day, saving for a car, saving for a big trip, saving for anything that you want to call it. But just have that percentage always saved and give it a little bit of a kind of a category so you know you're saving for something, and it gives you also a motivation to save. Like if you just say, I'm just saving, but for what? Try to think of those big dreams that you have and you want to save for them. And if you think about it, like when I was going with the rule, there's 50, 20, 30. When I looked at that, the survey that I've done with the students, what we got was 36% needs and 64% was wants. There was no savings in that equation. And this is where we need to adjust our spending habits, to adjust the way we budget, to adjust our behaviors to make sure that we keep savings in mind, we keep that I can spend this much on wants, but not every day, and so on. Now, there are budgeting resources. I'm gonna show you a way to kind of do some budgeting. You can do it on a simple Excel sheet, and I'm gonna show you like one example Excel sheet that I have. But you could put your revenue, kind of like whatever you have, income or was it whether it was salary, allowance, whatever it is, and then you have the needs and the wants. And then you look at your savings. This Excel sheet, I've put it here on this QR code, and I'll put the link on the chat shortly, which is, you could be it's a free worksheet. It's just like any other worksheet, but this is your take-home exercise. Think about how do you spend your money, and once you put your numbers here and see how much do you do this, how much do you do this, you can find out your percentages and see, are you close to this or not? Because it's a good measure for you to say how much you're spending on wants versus how much you're spending on needs. Sometimes we really think like, I'm not spending that much. But when you put the numbers and you plug it into the sheet, you realize how much percentage of your monthly allowance or something is going to those needs and wants. Also, there is a nice app. It's called You Need a Budget, or the YNAB app. So it's available on Google Store and Apple Store. And it's a very simple budget where you put in, how much you get in allowance, and it helps you kind of track those costs as you go. And this is for number one as budgeting. We said number two of financial literacy was savings. So what is savings? Savings is as simple as saying, setting aside a portion of money or income for future use. There is emergency fund, financial goals, or just financial freedom. That, for example, if some people, if they want to take a job kind of break, or they have to leave for a certain way and they can't afford, to let go of their income, when you have a good saving account, it's your backbone. It is, you can take a job break when you want, and you don't have to make money to pay your installments because you do have some financial freedom. You do have some money that could, keep you until you get the next job or so on. But how do we actually save? When you save, you have to think about the new behavior, new habits. The first thing you do is track your expenses. See how much is I am spending. So sometimes you could, if you're always spending on your bank card, so you can look at your bank card, download the statement, or some bank apps even help you look at where are you spending your money. It categorizes your spending. Set limits for yourself. For example, only one time I could order takeout, or only up to 20 KD or something that I could order. Above that, I'm not gonna order. So you set limits for yourself. The next thing is shop smart. Sometimes We're impatient. We want to get what we want. But if we wait for the discount, if we wait for the offer, if we have some kind of memberships or something, it may get me a better deal and I'll be saving some more money. Also, reevaluate subscriptions. When you have all of these Netflix and Disney Plus and Hulu and all of that stuff, maybe sometimes you're not using one as much. So always revisit them. And because the subscription services, they rely that as long as it goes and renews and renews, and sometimes you don't use it, but it auto renews, and that's a problem with auto renewals. It just keeps deducting from you. One idea is also have a fixed deposit. Let's say after Eid, or you've got some big gift or some big allowance, or you have some money. You could always put it on a like a small what they call the investment, or just a savings account that gives you good interest. So, and then when it's fixed deposit, it's hard for you to actually break it, and it's not right there in the account where you just swipe the card and use it. Same thing. There are a lot of savings accounts with certain banks that if you keep the money there without withdrawing anything, you could go into win a prize or win certain more money and things. So this gives you also an incentive to keep the money and think twice before you withdraw the money for something you just want to buy. And like I said, habits and behaviors do not happen only once. I read once that you have to do something like 200 times for it to be a habit. So let's say you tracked your expenses, you set your limits, and things were going well, but then you saw something that you really wanted and you went above your limit. It's okay. You don't have to say, oh, khalas, I broke my limit. I don't care. I'm not going to do budgeting anymore. No, no, no. It takes time for us to form the habit. So be forgiving to yourself, but also be disciplined as you do it. Make sure that when you do the habit, when you try a new habit, that you remind yourself, and make sure that you also congratulate yourself for actually doing that habit consistently. So a lot of it becomes a trial and error, and sometimes you have to put certain reminders or something. So, and always remember the budgeting rule of thumb, the 30, 20, 50%. And like I said, if you have extra from the 50, don't move them all into once. Make sure you move something into the 20. So that kind of covers our second part, which is the savings. And now I'm going to go into the debt management, or what we call credit. This is something that's honestly very new to this part of the world, or to people having credit reports and credit cards and so on. Some banks do offer credit cards with limits or prepaid cards. There are all these different things, but once you use something on credit, which means you pay for something and you have to pay back later, that means you have a credit line, we call it. And a credit line can have different limits. So some bank may give you a credit card for up to 500 KD, for example, dinar, or up to 1,000 dinar. And the limits may change depending on different things. The limits change depends whether you have a big allowance or salary. It also depends on your behavior. If they see that previously you are always paying your credit card back late, or even loans, but you'll get to loans later. But they really look at your past behavior to decide whether they give you a credit card or not. The same thing goes with the buy now, pay later. Like I said, Tabi and Tamara. If you buy something right now, if you go to Sephora and you end up with a big shopping cart and they tell you, you know what, you can divide the payments on 4 payments and pay with Tabi. Fine, you could do that, but you have to pay it back on like 3 or 4 installments. If you pay back on time, that's very, very good because it will show them that you are disciplined and you're paying on time. If you pay late or don't pay at all, it will go into your credit record. And the credit record is saved, and then it will affect you getting future loans. And this is how the debt management, people go to debt because sometimes you're low on cash. Sometimes you want to buy a car. So you can't buy a car cash, you want to buy it on installments. Sometimes some credit cards tell you, if you buy on credit card, you get points, you get rewards, you get discounts. So a lot of good stuff to buy credit cards. But then how you act on payback really affect you in the future. So a lot of you, like I said, could do internet devices when you buy phones or even subscriptions. There's some payment being to that. If you buy electronics, a lot of the electronics store right now offer them, and the buy now pay later, which I mentioned, like Tabi and Tamara, and a lot of these other small companies. Um, the way it affects you is you have something called a credit score, and as I mentioned, or as we showed in the Kahoot, the credit score is a score, is a number really, a number that is representative of your kind of credit worthiness, of your good behavior, of how well do you manage your finances, meaning when you borrow something, do you pay back on time? Because there are major things that affect your credit score. And one of it is basically the credit limit. Like if for example they give you a limit of 500 and you're always reaching that limit, always topping the limit. If you pay back 100, you spend it. You pay back 100, you spend it. That's not a good behavior. That means you're always maxing out on your limit and you're not planning your costs well. Number two, of course, is like I said, payback behavior. How does that affect you? That credit score is affected by payback behavior. And then it also affects by if you, some people just never pay back, by the way. And when these people never pay back, what they call it, it becomes kind of a legal account, they call it, or they have a legal indicator on it that, this is just a default. And defaults are not good at all when you have defaults on your record because it may affect your future lending. If you want to go then buy a car or something, this will come back into your credit score. Now, like I said, a credit score is a number. So, for example, every country has different ranges. Some countries go from 400 to 800, and the higher your number is the better your score. And then usually sometimes what they do between let's say theoretically this is 400 to 800. So you'll do 400 to 500, it may be here that you're risky. But the 700 to 800 may be here, the elite. Because this person here is the elite, he's the one who pays really well on time. So some countries use colors to actually identify different segments, or some people just use the number. So it depends wherever you are. Like in Kuwait, Signet does the score classification and everyone can log into the app. So for example, in Kuwait, you log into the Signet app and you look at your score. Of course, you have to have some history, like some credit cards, and soon when you do buy now pay later, you see some history. In Jordan, it's called KRIF. And it's the same concept. They have scores, they have bands. In Saudi, for example, there is SIMA. In Egypt, there is iScore. In Bahrain, there is Benefit. In Qatar, there is QCB. In Emirat, there is Ittihad. So in every single country in the Arab world, oh sorry, Oman, there is Mala'a as well. So in every country, there is a credit bureau. And the credit bureau, like Signet in Kuwait, measures your behavior with these loans or credit cards and so on, and then comes up with the score. This is your score. And usually, like in Signet, we try to make the scores even easier by giving them the different colors. So you always say to somebody, Shlonik, what's your color, basically? So if your color is elite, purple, means you're doing really good, you're paying on time, you're doing this. So one thing is this affects your score, affects your future lending. If somebody and I've seen many cases of people like go to electronics store, they buy something on installments, like I don't know, a printer or a laptop, and it's about 300 KD. They say on installment, but they never pay back. And when the company tries 3 to 6 months of trying to collect the payment and there's no payback, then what happens is they report it to Signet that there is this person who borrowed this but never paid back. And every time you don't pay, your color gets worse, and you might get into the red color. And we don't want to do that because if you go then 6 months later, apply for a credit card, the bank pulls your credit score from Signet, from us as a credit bureau, and they see that you have a history of non-payment and they'll think twice before giving you a credit card because a bad credit history means that you don't pay well. You're not diligent. You probably will default. So the bank will not think about giving you a loan once you decide to buy a car or something like this, and they'll think about it twice. And this practice of credit score, I've seen it in the States and USA for over 20 years. And it's always been practiced, but everybody has to know their score. But it's a very new concept here to know your score, to know your number or know your color and be able to take care of it. So how do you have a great credit score? Like I said, the first thing is payment behavior, pay on time. And one way to pay on time is to schedule, to put budgets, to make sure that I set some money aside to pay off any debt that I have. Limit utilization, borrow wisely. Don't try to use all of your limit. If you get a card with a limit, don't use it all. Also, credit inquiries. Don't apply too much. If you apply for too much loans, it will affect your credit score by going lower. Also, review your credit report. All of the credit bureaus that I mentioned and whatever credit bureau that you have in your country, you can log in and you can view your own credit report. So like I said, remember the three basics of financial literacy: budgeting, savings, and managing your debt, and knowing your credit score and maintaining your credit score. When I looked at the financial literacy rates for just around Kuwait, where I am, there was different levels at different countries. But if you look, the worldwide averages, if people under 35 is 53, over 35 is 63. So we need to really work on our financial literacy skills to raise that number and make sure that we are understanding and effectively using financial skills. Before I go into the story of Ahmed and Layla, I want to see if anybody has any questions, or we can look at questions. Okay, maybe we make the questions about Ahmed and Layla. There is a
If you have any questions, please type them in the
somebody raised his hand.
box. It says, looking forward to learning about good behavior tips. Maybe at the end we can provide them with good behavior tips. You can move forward. Maybe they'll have some questions about Ahmed and Layla.
تمام. And maybe we make examples of safe investments. Okay. Okay. So let's move to Ahmed and Layla. Maybe we'll have the questions about Ahmed and Layla. So sorry, let's go here. So Ahmed and Layla are two college students that are your age, and they just graduated and got a job. Ahmed got a salary of 800 dinars, but he loves to pay for the shabab and his friends for dinner almost every day. So you can take a sneak peek into his spending habits. He took a loan once he got the job to buy a jet ski. And then he had a scuba diving surprise trip with the guys. So he needed more money. So he applied for a credit card and used the full limit to pay for the trip. So right now, when he tries to pay back his loan, when he tries to pay back his limit, so to pay back the credit card, he's probably late because he's spending a lot. Versus Layla, her salary was a bit less. Her salary was 650, but what she did, she wanted to buy an iPhone. So what she did, she planned a budget and she saved the money every month from her salary so she could cash in the iPhone. She took a loan to buy her car because she needed the car, so she bought the loan, and then she pays her loan payment for the car on time. But what she did, she put a limit on her spending outside needs. Which one do you think credit card application will actually be accepted with a smile from the bank? Maybe we could do a poll, maybe, or a question. And of course, it is Layla. The reason Layla is gonna get that is because few things here that we need to just highlight. What Layla does is when she took a loan for a need. She needs to ride her car to work. Ahmed took a loan for a want, right? He took the loan for a jet ski. He doesn't need a jet ski to go to work, I'm sure. And when you take a loan, make sure that you focus your loans for big needs, for things that you can't cash in. If Ahmed wanted to buy the jet ski, there's no problem with buying a jet ski. Don't get me wrong. Buy the jet ski, but save for it. Do some savings on the side. And like I said, when you do into your sheet for the budgeting sheet, make sure that you are saving. And the saving goal is a jet ski. And as you save money, you're slowly going to get into the amount and you could cash in the jet ski without getting into debt, without getting into loans. So the key here is you take a loan. There's no problem with the loans, but take it for a good need and plan it. Not just take it just for fun. When he applied for the credit card here, it was again for another want. It wasn't a need. So he wanted to do a scuba diving trip. There's nothing wrong again with trips, but you still want to actually do this. So Layla, what she does here, when she is paying her loan on time and has a limit on her spending, meaning that she has a good savings and she planned a budget to buy. So she was buying a new iPhone. Maybe her phone is works, but if she needs a new iPhone, maybe she doesn't need a new iPhone. She wants it. It's a want for her, the iPhone. But she planned, she budgeted, and she bought it. And the idea here is don't deprive yourself from your wants, but just plan for them and save for them. That's kind of the key story about this.